So after going through the demand for healthcare and also the supply side a little bit on the labor markets for physicians, starting chapter 7, we are going to discover the study of insurance. Well, as you may have experienced from your daily life, that most of the healthcare expenses are basically coming from insurance payments in the United States, and also as well as looking around the world. So insurance market becomes a very big part of this health economic study because, well, it becomes the third party that involved other than the supplier of the healthcare services or the demand side, which is the patients who demand the service. So in chapter 7, we are going to discover, well, why do we want to buy insurance? So we are going to use one of the most fundamental models, which is the model of income utilities, to describe what we get from the insurance coverage or the insurance contract. And then we would like to talk about uncertainties and risk aversions. Comparing the insurance contract is the ultimate goals here in this chapter. So out of all these different types of insurance contracts, well, what contract actually makes a fair bet for us to buy the insurance? So at the beginning of this chapter, the book actually talks about insurance. Basically, it's kind of like a betting or gambling. It's basically betting on something that could possibly happen in our life. Something bad happens that might actually financially, or maybe in other terms, that hurts our utility. So insurance in general, basically it's like a hedge that go against the risk for getting into some very, very bad outcomes in life. Well, in order to hedge those risks, purchasing the insurance means we are going to forfeiting some income in the good time so that we can get some money in order to pay off those expenses in the bad times. So if the bad times is avoided, obviously the money will lost. Because when we are not getting sick but paying those insurance payments, well, obviously we don't get any money back. So for example, when the individual who buys the health insurance but never visits the hospitals may have been better off spending that income on something else, like instead of buying the health insurance, now he or she can use this money on buying a movie ticket, or maybe buying a new car, or maybe buying other stuff in life. So it's kind of like a weird thing to think about insurance. It has to be the case that when we are buying this insurance, something must be going on in our life so that we are going to get the payoff from this insurance contract. So risk aversion actually driving this demand for insurance in the market. So ultimately, why people actually buying insurance is because they are trying to be on the safe side of their life in order to protect themselves from anything that could possibly happen in their life. So we can actually model what we call the risk aversions through the utility from income. So this very simple model that we are about to describe here, it's basically assuming people will get their utility directly from earning income. Of course, the higher level of income we earn, we assume the utility will increase. So the utility actually increase with income, almost indefinitely. So the higher level of income we earn, well, the higher level of utility we can achieve. However, we also assume in this model the marginal utility for income is diminishing with income. So that means as more and more incomes that we earn, the utility gain from that additional income will diminish. I think this is a very, very simple concept that we might have already covered in the principal microeconomics. So we call this a diminishing utility from income. So in general, what does it mean? So let's give you a simple example here. When a person has no money at all to pay for anything, well, the first $100 that he or she earns actually provide a huge amount of utility to this person. Maybe this person is starving, so with this $100 initial $100 income goes into the pocket, now he can find food to at least survive, to make himself very, very happy. However, when this person is actually earning millions or maybe billions of dollars of income, well, earning one additional $100 on top of that $1 million that he has, well, obviously it's not going to make him as happy as he was only having zero balance but earning that $100 additional dollar. So that's what we call the diminishing marginal returns from income. So in general, we can actually plot this relationship on a graph. So in this diagram here, basically we are illustrating on the horizontal axis, which is the income that a person can possibly earn, and on the vertical axis, we are illustrating the utility that related to that different level of income. So as you can see, as higher and higher level of income earns, as we moving towards to the right hand side on the horizontal axis, well, the higher level of utility we can achieve. So we have a higher level of utility on the vertical axis. However, the utility gain will diminish over some level of income. So at the beginning stage, you see this increase of utility will be very, very high. However, as higher and higher level of income we earn, well, the smaller marginal gain we will get from our utility. So how is this model going to help us describe or study the risk-averse in life? So let's suppose there is an individual that he or she doesn't know whether she will become sick, but the only thing that individual knows is the probability of sickness is somewhere between 0 to 1. So that means there might be some possibility or chance that she might get sick later in her life. And we are going to denote P as the probability of sickness or people getting sick. And 1 minus P is the probability of staying healthy. Well, why is that? Because obviously the probability can always only add up to 1. So either the person gets sick or the person stay healthy. So if we have a probability P equals to, let's say, 0.5, so half of a chance that person will get sick, well, obviously the rest of the probability for staying healthy will be also 0.5, because the person can only be either sick or healthy. So let's suppose if she gets sick, there are some expenses or maybe some factor that might causing this person losing some income. So either the medical bills or missing works that reduce her income when she is in the sick state. And we denote the income if this person goes sick as IS. And we also denote the income this person can earn when she's healthy. So that means she's not paying all these medical bills and putting the full times at work, is equal to IH. And obviously, IH is assumed to be true that it's always greater than IS. Well, let's add in one more thing in our analysis, and then we can talk about the results here, or maybe the conclusion from this model. Well, one very important thing that we have to learn in this chapter is what we call the expected values. Well, it's a term that you might have heard from your statistical class, but this expected value basically is the sum of all possible outcomes of some random variables weighted by each outcome probability. It might sound a little bit too complicated, but in general, basically we are trying to add up all the possible values that could possibly happen in life according to the probability that it could happen in our lifetime. So in our individual case, the formula for expected values of income, and now we denote EI, is equal to the probability of getting sick multiplied by the income for getting sick plus the probability for getting or staying healthy, 1 minus P, times the income at the healthy state, IH. So let's use an example to illustrate, well, what do we mean by expected values of income? Let's suppose we offer a starving graduate students a choice between two possible options here: a lottery and a certain payout. So option A here basically is a lottery. This lottery is going to award $500 to this graduate student with a probability equals to 0.5. That means a 50% chance to win this award, or $0 with a probability of 0.5. So that means there is another 50% chance that this graduate student is not going to get anything. And option B, there is a check on the table which has a probability of 1, which is 100% a certain payment this graduate student can get, which worth $250. So when we are trying to calculate the expected values from this case of both options, we are going to apply the equation similar to calculating the income, the expected values of income for that individuals who might have a chance to get sick or maybe stay healthy. So in this case, we are going to calculate the expected values of both the lottery and the certain payout as the following. So the expected values for option A, EA, is equal to 0.5 times 500, which is the probability for winning the awards that worth $500, plus 0.5 times 0, which is the probability to lose the lottery and earn 0 income. And the expected values of income in this case is $250 for option A. And for option B, the expected returns or expected values for option B is 100% 1 times $250. Because, well, the probability for getting this check is 100%. There is no other options or other chances to earn other level of income. So obviously, the expected values of option B is $250. So in this case, well, even though the student is facing two different options to earn his income, well, obviously, the expected values for both options are the same. However, I would like you guys to think about this question. If you are in these situations, well, which option will you most likely to choose? Well, Most of the studies actually found that majority of the people actually prefer certain payouts. That means confirmed that 100% payout over the uncertain scenarios. So in the previous case, most people actually choose to have the $250 paycheck instead of entering to this lottery to earn the same expected value returns from the lottery. Well, if a student actually say he preferred the uncertain option, well, what does it imply about his utility functions? And to answer this question, we actually need to define what we call the expected utility for a lottery or uncertain outcome. So similar to the expected values of income or returns, or expected utility actually coming from the fact that we are trying to calculate the sum of the utility from each of the possible outcome of income. So in this case, the expected utility from random payouts, X is the sum of the utility from each of the possible outcome weighted by each outcome's probability. Again, we're not trying to be technical here, but we are basically just trying to understand, well, the expected utility. It's not some kind of utility we are going to get, but it's weighted for each of the outcome's probability. So it's related to the probability in each possible outcomes in our life. So let's take examples to see, well, what does it really mean if the student actually prefer a certain payout or maybe an uncertain payout. So in our previous example, let's suppose the student actually prefer option A over option B, even though the expected returns from the two options are the same, which is $250. However, the expected utility from those two options can be very different. So in this case, let's take a look. If this person or student actually prefer option B over option A, it must be true that the utility or expected utility from option B is greater than his expected utility from option A. And to denote that, we are going to use this notation here. So as you can see, well, E is always what we rewritten as the expected values of some variables. And in this case, we are trying to evaluate the utility for option B and also the utility for option A. So the expected values of utility from option B is the utility getting $250. And the expected utility from option A is equal to 0.5 times the utility for getting $500 plus 0.5 times the utility for getting $0. So as you can see, well, even though there is a chance for earning $500 in this lottery, however, the $0 might have this very, very negative utility that might actually significantly reduce the total expected utility from these options. So that's why some people in the reality, they actually prefer a certain payout like option B. So in this case, even though the expected value for both options are the same, however, the student prefer one over the other means that the student actually prefer, especially in this case because the expected value are equals, the student actually prefer the certain payout over the less certain ones. And we actually summarize this kind of actions by saying this student is acting in a risk-averse manner over the choice available. So risk-averse can be the models in this expected utility functions here. As long as the expected returns or expected values of two options are the same, if we find that person actually prefer the more certain choice over the less certain ones, well, obviously, well, this person is more risk averse than the other people. So the previous examples of the lottery case actually help us to understand why insurance actually makes sense to most people. And in order to illustrate for the incentive for buying insurance, well, we are going to actually take a look at one individual case where this person can gain higher income if staying healthy and lower income if she fell sick. So the uncertainty about which outcome will happen, she knows the probability of becoming sick, it's always P. So there is always some chance, some probability in her life that she will get sick. So in this case, the expected utility from her income becomes this equation here. P again is the probability for getting sick times the utility for the sick income plus 1 minus P, which is the probability for staying healthy, times the utility from getting the healthy income, IH. So this diagram actually illustrates two things. Number one, it illustrates the utility functions from income. So basically this concave utility function illustrating the possibility utility earned at different level of income. And there is a dotted lines that actually go through 2 points, which is point S and point H. Well, this is basically the options for people who felt sick in their life. So consider in this case where the person is sick, obviously when P is equal to 1, well, the expected utility is equal to the utility for getting the sick income, which is equals to IS. And we can, for certain, to identify that as point S. And the point H basically represents the probability for this person not getting sick or maybe staying healthy the whole time. So if the probability for getting sick is equal to 0, well, obviously the expected utility is coming from the utility of earning high level of income or healthy income. So at this high income or healthy income IH, well, the utility is being illustrated by point H. Well, between 0 and 1, so there must be some probability for someone to get sick, or maybe just simply not even getting sick, or maybe someone just got into an accident that hurt his or her fingers, or maybe has a broken leg or something. So the expected utility actually fall on this line segment between S and H, which is highlighted in red color. Well, if you think a little bit more in depth, well, this equation that we derived earlier, the expected utility from income, it's a linear functions of the variable P. So depends on what the probability is, well, we will always get a certain level of utility. Let's do an example. Let's suppose the probability for getting sick is 0.25. So the person's expected income in this case is equal to 0.5 times the income from getting sick plus 1 minus 0.25 times the healthy income. So the utility at that expected income is actually illustrated in point A. So in this case, the expected income is much lower comparing to the healthy state, obviously because there is some probability for getting sick, so the income earned will definitely fall below. However, what's important to illustrate here is at point A, it's not any point on the utility function curve, which is the concave utility curve. Because the fact is, we will always fail on this line segments from S and H if for any probability getting sick. So that means we are not actually reaching out to a higher level of utility that can possibly happen in our life. Well, what causing this? Well, obviously, uncertainty might help explain why we are actually having lower utility at the income level when P is equal to 0.25. So let's talk about the distinction between the expected utility and the utility from expected income. Well, the two terms can be very, very complicated. So again, if we are going to use this diagram to illustrate the expected utility from certain income is illustrated by point A, which is on the line segments between S and H. And the utility from expected income, let's say we can certainly earn some level of income, and the utility illustrate that certain payout, it's actually represented by points A pi, so which is on the diagram higher than point A. So for risk-averse people, we know it. We have illustrates from the lottery examples. People usually prefer a certain payout than the uncertain one. So that means, well, this person who has a certain probability for getting sick and earn lower level of income might actually be much less happy comparing to someone who actually decide to earn this low level of income without any uncertainty. So for example, if a person might actually fall sick half of the time, and he actually has no choice, he just randomly being assigned to be sick in his life to earn, let's say, $10,000 a year. Versus there is another healthy individual and he choose to only earn $10,000 a year for certain. So regardless whether he's sick or he's healthy, and he is pretty certain he can always earn $10,000. And he choose to earn this certain income. Well, both income exactly equals to $10,000 or expected income, but the person who has a certain payout, who knows it, will definitely earn $10,000 in a year, will have a much higher utility comparing to someone who has this uncertainty of getting sick and might not even be able to get that $10,000 in his life. So this actually help explains why being sick actually make us less happy. Because in this case, obviously, the utility that we have in our life with uncertainty payoff, it's much lower comparing to the ones that has a certain payoff. So in this risk aversions in the utility income models, we can kind of draw some conclusions here. When we define someone as risk averse, we actually referring to people who prefer the certain outcome to uncertain ones with the same expected income or same expected returns. And in general, the individual actually prefer the utility that she could get from her expected income to the expected utility she will get from her actual uncertain income. It all lies on to this very, very big assumption here. We are actually assuming the diminishing marginal returns of income in our utility function. So we always assume the concave utility functions as we illustrate in the diagram. Some economists out there actually argues that if this concave utility functions of income actually true for everyone. Well, there are other theories trying to help furnish the models and trying to study whether this concave utility function can be applied to the general population. But in general, we still believe this concave utility function can be broadly applied to almost everyone's so far that we have studied in most of the models in economics. There are some controversial questions has been arise, but there are also other theories helps to describe the distortions in reasoning that occur when people think about uncertain incomes. So with the conclusion we draw from the previous models, we can now actually try to study why insurance actually exists in the markets. So people always prefer the certain payoff or certain income over the uncertain ones. So obviously people don't want to actually get involved with this potential loss of income when they are getting sick. So let's suppose there is a contract that we call the insurance contract that people can buy. And how this health insurance contract work is, in a simple sense, the customer actually pay an upfront fee, and this payment is what we call R in the model later. So this R represents the insurance premium that the customer has to pay upfront. And when the customer is getting sick or feeling ill, well, he will have to use or get access to the medical services. And the customer will actually get a compensations of Q. So for example, when you're getting sick, let's say one day you accidentally hurt your leg, you broke your leg, and you go to the hospital and you have your insurance, well, the insurance company is going to pay you whatever the fee for covering these medical services. So Q basically is the insurance payout. When the person actually stay healthy the whole time while he or she is buying the insurance package or the insurance contract, well, the customer will receive nothing. So either one way or the other, I would say the customer always lose the income on the upfront fee. So that means this individual will always have to pay R in this contract, and this R, the insurance premium, will never be able to retrieve. However, the final income for the customers might actually be a little bit different. So when this person gets sick, well, he will receive the income for getting sick, IS, plus whatever the insurance company will pay this person for the medical bills or maybe loss of the income for losing time at work, and minus R, which is the premium this person pay up front. And the total income earned by this individual, if he has been staying healthy the whole time, is the income that this person can possibly earn for staying healthy, IH, plus zero insurance payouts because, well, obviously he is not sick, so that he doesn't get anything from the insurance company, and minus R, which is the insurance premium. So let's denote the income with insurance contract at the healthy state and the insurance or income with the insurance contract at the sick state. So we denote IH prime here to becomes the healthy income when we're purchasing the health insurance contract, and IS prime here is the total income with the insurance when the person getting sick. So remember, the risk-averse customers or the consumer, they want to avoid any uncertainty that could happen to their income. So in this case, the optimal choice for this person to choose whether to buy an insurance or not is that they will want to have the income with the insurance, either the healthy stay or sick stay. Well, the income for both choice or both probability will be exactly the same. So that means, well, I will earn a certain level of income, I'm getting healthy, and at the same time, even though I'm getting sick, I know it, I will be covered by the insurance company. So I will still earn the same level of income as I was healthy. So when that happens, we call this a full insurance. A full insurance basically means there is no income uncertainty. The final income earned by this individual is state independent. So regardless whether the person is in healthy state or sick state, the final income will always be the same for this individual if he is purchasing a full insurance. So the risk-averse individual always prefer for buying the full insurance to a partial insurance if given the insurance package or the contract are the same price. So the insurance or full insurance payout, it's basically can be explained by the following equations here. So state independency basically implies the total income at a healthy state and the total income in the sick state are the same. So we can actually rewrite this as IH plus 0 minus R equals to IS plus Q minus R. And ultimately, we can actually derive the conditions to the last term here, which is Q, the insurance payout, is equal to IH minus IS, which is the difference, the income difference between the healthy state and the sick state. So the payout from the full insurance contract actually ensuring us to always have the difference between the two income level to be covered by the insurance company. So the payout from full insurance contract is the difference between the income without insurance. If full insurance is being purchased, that also means the person is getting a actuarially fair insurance. So actuarially fair basically means the insurance that has a fair bet. So when we are purchasing the insurance, the premium that we pay is equal to the expected payout that we will receive if we are getting sick. So again, well, by using the notation here, R is the premium we pay and is equal to the expected payout, which is the probability for getting sick, P, times Q, which is the total payout, insurance payouts when we get sick. So in this case, the insurer basically making zero economic profits, or we call them normal profits from the actuarially fair insurance in expectations. So the company who are selling this insurance, they are basically making zero profits because they have certain probability that they have to pay for the sick customers. And also at the same time, the premium that they receive from this, all the customers in the pool can exactly cover or maybe pay off all this sick customer for the medical fees or maybe whatever that's they have to pay off from the contracts. So in the book, there is a derivations on how the healthy state and sick state has the same level of income or expected income. So you can actually try to take a look at these derivations here and understand why the income with insurance in the healthy state and the income with insurance in the sick state are equal. So notice this customer actually with actuarially fair or full insurance actually achieve their expected income with certainty now. So that means, well, we are now actually getting to the points to describe this individual can always be certain to earn some level of income, even though it will definitely be falling below the income level this individual can maximally earn, which is IH. But somehow this is a certain income that it's higher than IS, which is the income that can earn in the sixth state. So as we have seen, by simply reducing the uncertainty, insurance can always make this risk-averse individual better off. So instead of having a lower level of utility earned with uncertainty in life, well, now the person or this individual can improve his utility by purchasing the insurance to reduce the level of uncertainty of losing income. So related to the state of no insurance, with insurance, of course, these individuals will lose income in the healthy state and gain income in the sick state. So in other words, basically the risk-averse individual, it's willing to give up some level of income during the good time, which is the healthy state, in order to ease the bad time in the sick state. So that's basically the idea of insurance and why insurance actually makes sense. So in order to reduce the level of uncertainty in life to gain higher level of utility, so we are willing to actually give up some level of income in order to purchase this certainty or certain income in our life. Well, we have studied how the insurance contract actually work in basic, and also we take a look at the case or a very special case where the insurer actually earns zero economic profits from selling the insurance contract to the market. But the problem that might arise later is, well, in the long run, insurance company might earn zero economic profits if they are operating under the perfect competitive markets. Well, from the study of principal microeconomics, in the perfect competitive markets, a positive economic profit will actually attract new firms to come in to actually drive down the profits of the existing firm. And when there's a loss in the market, well, some of the company will actually be driving out of business to maintain a normal profits of the other firms. So, is it true that the insurance company, they are competing in a perfect competitive markets, right? So that's a question to ask, because if they're not, obviously, the profits of an insurer may not necessarily to equal to zero. So we are going to try to consider the same insurance contracts, but in this case, we are not only taking a look at the insurance to the customers, but we are considering the insurance contract from the point of view of the insurer. So we say, again, the premium that paid by the customers is R, the payout the insurance company has to pay is Q, and the probability of the customer getting sick is P. So now we can actually define the expected profits of the insurer is equal to 1 minus P, which is the probability for the individual to stay healthy, times R, which is the premium they will receive from the customer, plus P, which is the probability for getting sick of their customer, times R minus Q, which is the premium received minus the payouts that they have to pay to their customers. So if we are going to work out this formula here, we actually find that the equation ultimately will equals to R minus P times Q. So in the perfect competitive insurance market, always profits will be driving to zero. So when the profit is equal to zero, that also implies that R is equal to P times Q, which is what we actually derive from the previous sections when we talk about the fair bets insurance. So insurance contract that yields a positive profits, well, it's what we call the unfair insurance. Or sometimes we call this an actuarially unfair contract. It has a conditions where the profit is greater than 0, also implies the premium R is greater than the expected payouts of the insurance company, P times Q. So an insurer actually would never offer a contract with negative profits. So that means the reverse will never exist in the market. So there will never be a chance the insurer actually charging a premium from their customer that it's less than the expected payouts to the customer. So we can actually try to take a look at what we call the partial insurance now, comparing to the full insurance that we studied in the previous sections. So the partial insurance basically is an insurance that does not achieve the state independency. So it does depend on the state of the health conditions of the individual consumers. Well, in the full insurance, we have already discovered the payout Q will always equals to the difference between the health income and the sick income. However, in the case of partial insurance, we actually define that the person who is healthy buying the insurance will always get a higher payoff or incomes comparing to the same person buying the insurance package or insurance contract if he or she is falling sick. So in this case, the Q here, which is the payout of the insurance company, will always be less than what the individual consumer will receive from the difference between the healthy income and the sick income. So that's what we call the partial insurance to be a unfair insurance, because obviously we want to be compensated by this payout in order to make up the difference between the health income and the sick income. But if this payout by the insurance company is less than what we actually missing from the difference of the two states, well, this insurance only cover partials of the losses. So the size of this payout Q obviously determines the fullness of the contract. So the closer Q is equal to IH minus IS, which is the healthy income and the sick income, the fuller the contract it is. We can also illustrate this by a graphical illustrations here. Let's suppose if we are looking at three different scenarios here. So we know it from point S to point H, there is a line segment that illustrates a person that purchased no insurance for his or her life. So with the income IF, this person can maximally earn a utility of 0.8. With the same level of income, buying a partials or partially fair insurance, well, the person can actually achieve the points on the segment line between SP and HP. So in this case, with income at IF, well, this person can earn a utility that is much higher than 0.8, which is 0.8 AP here. And at last, a person who purchasing a full insurance contract will always be getting paid a certain income. So in this case, if this person is getting a certain income of IF, well, obviously, this person or this individual will always be able to achieve 0.8 F on the diagram. So this diagram actually illustrates the situation in two different scenarios and somewhere in between. So point A illustrates a person that buy no insurance. Point AF actually illustrates the insurance or the individual buying a full insurance or actually fair insurance. And point AP or any points between AF and A represents the unfair insurance contract. So the fullness of this contract really depends on the payouts, right? How close it is to the compensation between the sick income and the healthy income. The closer it is to the difference, or the fullest it is. Well, the idea for studying the partial insurance and the full insurance is to identify what is the ideal insurance contract that people prefer. So for anyone who is risk averse, the actually fair and full insurance contract actually offer the most utility for those insurance customers. And this kinds of insurance contract is what we call the ideal insurance contract. It's always preferred by the risk-averse individuals. However, there are many different combinations of the insurance contract that's available in the markets. And the combinations of premium R and payout PQ actually result in the different types of insurance contracts, so that we can define by this table here. So the contract parameters R and Q actually determines its level of fairness and fullness. For any particular individual, we've given values of P, which is the probability getting sick, IH, the healthy income, and IS, which is the sick income. So at a fixed level of fairness, well, full insurance is preferable to partial insurance because, well, it provides certain incomes for these individuals. However, at a fixed level of fullness, fair insurance is preferable because it costs less than the unfair insurance and delivers the same benefits. So these two rules actually implies the insurance that is both fair and full is always preferable to anything else. And that's why we call this an ideal contract. It's the best attainable contract from the consumer's point of view. So whenever the individual is offered a choice between the ideal contract and a non-ideal one, well, she will always choose the former one. But of course, when she is offered the choice between the two non-ideal contracts, obviously, this individual can only decide between them by a closer comparisons of their expected utility under each conditions. So let's take a look at one example here comparing two non-ideal contracts. So let's consider a market that offers two different insurance contracts. So contract F is a full contract, full insurance, but actually unfair. And option P or contract P is a partial insurance contract, but provide an actually fair payouts. So both of them neither is ideal. So we cannot say which contract is actually a better choice for any potential customers until we actually evaluate the individual expected utility and under each options. So the situation of this individual, consider these two contracts is illustrated in the table below. So in this example, we define a full but unfair contract, AF, that offer a higher expected utility than the partial but fair AP contract. Although the contract F is unfair and more expensive in terms of expected income, its fullness makes it worth the added cost. For the risk-averse individual with his utility functions, the reductions of this uncertainty actually warrants paying an actually unfair price. But there is still a limit to how much the individual is willing to pay, even for the full insurance. As the unfair but full contract F become progressively more unfair, well, it moved left on the income utility diagram, which we're presenting a gradual decline in expected income. If the unfair but full contract becomes too unfair, well, obviously the individual expected utility will drop to below her expected utility from the fair but partial contract. So graphically, this actually occurred when EUF fall lower than EUP. At that point, the individual actually prefer contract P to contract F. So again, in this case, because the utility from contract F is greater than the utility from contract B, so even though contract F is actually unfair, it's relatively foolish. That makes it more desirable for the risk-averse individual. But notice, if the contract F become more unfair, then expected income will fall. So if it's too unfair, obviously AF might actually generally less utility comparing to AP. So similarly, we can also talk about the contract P might become more and more full by increasing its payouts, and the uncertainty in this case will fall, so that the point AP move. At some point, these customers actually will be indifference between the two contracts. But from the previous diagram, obviously, you can actually kind of tell it really depends on the level of fairness and the level of fullness of the contract. Well, even though for two non-ideal contracts, well, people will still pick the ones that give them the highest utility or from the total incomes or expected income in the models. So let's get to the conclusions of this chapter. So now I would say after studying the whole chapter here, we kind of find, well, what driving the demands of insurance. Obviously, because of the nature of human beings, we always consistently willing to sacrifice some income or utility in a good time in order to exchange for the utility in a bad time. And that makes us very risk-averse individuals. So we are always trying to reduce uncertainty, and we are trying to actually get the maximum amounts of certain income in our life. So by using the diminishing marginal utility from income, we can now obviously illustrate the risk-averse in the models, and also by looking at the risk aversions of individual, we can now explain why buying an insurance might help the risk-averse individual to earn a higher level of utility. So the risk aversion can also explain not only just the demand for insurance. Well, in the last part of the book, it actually have several example to illustrate how risk aversion can also help explain several different stories that happened in our past. I would strongly suggest you to go there to read those examples to get a better sense of this risk aversion concepts, because in the upcoming 2 chapters we are going to heavily using the concept of risk aversions and probability in order to study the problem we have in the insurance markets. So I will see you next time.